Ryan walked slowly down the long corridor of the orbital station, rubbing his tired eyes. The shift in the engineering sector had been longer than usual. Machines never rested, and when they broke, it was always the humans who were asked to crawl inside the dangerous, narrow tunnels to fix them. Other species were careful, too careful, and they disliked dirty work. Humans, on the other hand, were willing to get their hands covered in oil and dust. Ryan carried his small tool bag over his shoulder. He hummed to himself, a quiet tune, just to keep away the silence of the station. Lights flickered overhead. The place always looked the same: metal walls, gray floors, and the soft hum of power running through hidden cables. To others, it might feel empty, but to Ryan it felt like home. At last, he reached his room. A small sliding door opened when he pressed his hand against the scanner. Inside, there was hardly enough space for more than a narrow bed, a desk, and a locker. But after long hours of work, it felt like a palace. He let the bag fall to the floor with a soft thud. Ryan was about to collapse on the bed when he noticed something strange. The blanket wasn't lying flat. It was raised slightly, like something was underneath it. His tired eyes blinked. He frowned and slowly stepped closer. He reached out and pulled the blanket up. Someone was there. A pair of wide, glowing eyes stared back at him. The figure under the bed wasn't human. Ryan froze. The creature was small, thin, with pale skin that shimmered faintly in the dim light. It looked fragile, almost breakable, and it trembled as if it expected him to strike. A pair of small ridges ran along the sides of her face, and faint markings glowed on her arms. She looked young, not a child but not fully grown either. "Please," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "Please, let me stay. Just this night." Ryan straightened slowly, heart thumping in his chest. He looked at the door, then back at her. He had heard about her kind before. They were called Lyrants, one of the many races that filled the station. But humans rarely saw them this close. Lyrants usually stayed in the upper levels, kept far away from the noisy, crowded lower decks where the humans lived. "What are you doing here?" Ryan asked softly. His voice carried more confusion than anger. The girl crawled out a little from under the bed. She knelt on the floor, hands pressed together as though begging. I cannot go back. They will find me. Please, just this night." Her words came fast, broken, as if she was afraid of every sound outside. Ryan rubbed his forehead. "If someone sees you here," he didn't finish the sentence. Both of them knew what it would mean. Humans already had little respect on this station. If the security officers discovered that he was hiding a fugitive alien, he would lose his job, maybe even his home. Still, something about the way she shook made his chest tighten. He crouched down so his eyes were level with hers. "What's your name?" "Nira," she said, almost too quiet to hear. "Well, Nira," Ryan sighed, "you picked the wrong human's room. I'm not a hero, and I don't even know why you're running." Her glowing eyes filled with tears. She clenched her hands tightly. "Because you are human. Because humans do not close the door on someone who begs." Ryan blinked. Of all the reasons she could have given, that one surprised him the most. Humans were new to the galactic stage, often laughed at for being reckless, stubborn, and too emotional. But this alien girl thought it was something worth trusting. He leaned back on his heels, staring at her. He thought about how quiet his room had been every night. Empty. Lonely. And now here was someone asking him to take a risk. Ryan let out a long breath and shook his head with a tired smile. "One night. That's all. But you stay hidden. Understand?" Nira nodded quickly, relief washing over her face. She scrambled back under the bed, curling herself up small. Ryan stood, rubbing the back of his neck. He turned off the lights, leaving only the soft glow of the station outside his window. He lay down on the bed, pretending to sleep. But his mind was racing. Who was she running from? Why did she believe humans would help her? And why, in his heart, did he already know that one night would not be enough? The next morning came too soon. Ryan woke up to the faint hum of the station and the soft glow of lights shifting from night mode to day mode. For a moment, he almost forgot about the girl hiding in his room. Then he heard the quietest sound, a breath, quick and sharp from under the bed. He sat up slowly. "You're still here," he muttered. From the shadows, Nira crawled out. Her glowing eyes looked tired, as if she had not slept at all. She kept glancing at the door, nervous, as if someone might burst in at any second. "You promised," she said softly. Her voice was steadier than last night, but still weak. "One night." Ryan rubbed his face. He had promised, and promises mattered. But now it was morning, and the danger felt more real. Anyone could knock on his door. Security officers patrolled the corridors daily, and even a neighbor passing by might notice something strange. "I kept my word," Ryan said. "But I need to know the truth. Why are you here? What are you running from?" Nira hugged her knees and stayed quiet for a long time. Her glowing markings dimmed as though they were fading with her mood. Finally, she whispered, "Because I do not want to disappear." Ryan frowned. "Disappear? They take us," she said, voice shaking. "The overseers. They say we must serve. Some go to work above the station, where the important ones live. Others do not come back." Her words made Ryan's chest feel heavy. He had heard rumors before. Stories whispered in the human quarters about workers who never returned, about whole groups of aliens moved away without explanation. But no one dared speak loudly about it. Humans had no power on the station. They were allowed to live here because they fixed machines and crawled into places others would not. "Why tell me?" Ryan asked. "Why not go to your own people?" Nira's eyes shone with sudden pain. "My people cannot help. They obey, or they are punished. But humans," she paused, searching for the right words. "Humans fight. Even when you are weak, you fight. My mother used to tell me stories. She said humans are not afraid to protect someone, even if it costs them. I thought maybe, if I found one," her voice cracked. She looked down, ashamed. Ryan felt something stir inside him. He had grown used to people seeing humans as reckless troublemakers, tolerated only for their usefulness. But here was someone who believed in the very thing most others mocked. It made him uneasy, but also strangely proud. He stood and paced the small room. "You're telling me," he said slowly, "that the overseers are taking your people. For what? Work? Experiments?" "I don't know," Nero whispered. "Only that those who go do not return. I was chosen next. I ran." Ryan stopped pacing. He stared at her, this fragile alien girl who had risked everything just to hide under his bed. If what she said was true, then she was carrying a dangerous secret. If the overseers found her, they would not stop until she was dragged away. And if they found her with him? He shook the thought away. Nira's voice grew smaller. "You will send me back, won't you?" Ryan looked at her for a long time. He should. It would be safer. He had no reason to involve himself in her fight. Humans had enough of their own problems just trying to survive on the station. But when he looked at her frightened face, something hardened inside him. He remembered her words, "Humans fight." "No," Ryan said at last. "I'm not sending you back." Her eyes widened in surprise. "You mean, I mean you can stay," he said firmly. "But you have to stay hidden. If security finds out, we're both finished." Relief washed over her. For the first time since he met her, Nira gave a small, trembling smile. Ryan sat on the edge of his bed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know what you've dragged me into," he admitted, "but I can tell this won't be simple. If you're right, and the overseers are making your people disappear, then hiding you is just the beginning." Nira nodded, her eyes glowing a little brighter now. "I understand. But thank you." Ryan sighed. He had always thought of himself as just another engineer, fixing broken machines. But now, in this cramped little room, he felt something different. For the first time, someone was depending on him not because of his hands, but because of his heart. Outside the walls, the station carried on with its endless routines. Voices echoed in the corridor. Somewhere above, the overseers watched with their cold eyes, never expecting that in one human's room, a secret had already begun. And Ryan knew, deep down, that this secret would change everything. Ryan's room felt smaller than ever. Every sound outside made him tense. The shuffle of boots in the corridor, the low hum of a patrol drone passing, even the hiss of the ventilation system, it all reminded him that keeping Nira hidden was dangerous. He had agreed to let her stay, but now the true weight of that choice pressed down on him. If the overseers discovered her here, his life would not simply be ruined. It would be over. Humans were already treated as second class on the station. They had no voice, no power. If one of them was caught harboring a fugitive alien, no one would even ask questions. The punishment would be swift. Ryan sat at his desk, pretending to repair a broken tool, while Nira crouched quietly near the corner. She watched him carefully, as if studying the way his hands moved. "You do not seem afraid," she said softly. Ryan glanced up at her. "I'm afraid," he admitted. "But I'm also used to risk. Humans live with it every day on this station. You just learn to keep moving." Nira tilted her head, curious. "Why? Why do humans accept danger so easily?" He gave a short laugh. "Because we don't have a choice. We're the ones fixing the broken machines, crawling into places no one else will. If we didn't take risks, the whole station would break down." He paused, then added, "And maybe because being careful all the time isn't really living." Nira seemed to think about that for a long moment. Her glowing markings flickered faintly, like dim lights. Suddenly, a sharp knock echoed at the door. Ryan's heart nearly stopped. He gestured quickly to Nira, and she darted back under the bed, pulling the blanket down to hide herself. Ryan took a deep breath, forced his hands to stay steady, and walked to the door. It slid open with a hiss. 2 security officers stood outside. Their armor was dark and polished, their faces hidden behind smooth visors. One of them scanned Ryan with a small device. The other spoke in a flat voice. "Routine inspection. A Liron escaped last night. If you have seen anything unusual, report it now." Ryan's throat went dry. He forced himself to stay calm. "I haven't seen anything unusual," he said. "Just came back from my shift and slept." The officer stared at him for a moment that felt far too long. Finally, the second officer stepped past the doorway, peering inside the small room. Ryan's stomach twisted. If they decided to search properly, Nira would be found in seconds. But the officer only gave a brief glance around, then turned back. "Nothing here," he said. The first officer nodded. "If you notice anything, report immediately. Harboring fugitives is a station crime." Ryan swallowed hard. "I understand." The door slid shut again, and silence filled the room. From under the bed came a shaky breath. Slowly, Nira crawled back out. Her hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the bed. "They were looking for me." "Yes," Ryan said quietly. His hands were still shaking, though he tried to hide it. "And they'll keep looking. Which means keeping you here is a bigger risk than I thought." Nero lowered her head. I should go. Ryan looked at her sharply. And go where? Back to them. Into the corridors, where patrols will catch you within an hour. He shook his head firmly. No. If you walk out now, you're done. Staying is dangerous, but leaving is worse. She blinked at him, surprised by his tone. Then, you will still protect me. Ryan sighed and leaned back against the wall. I don't know why I'm doing this. I should hand you over and be done with it. That would be the smart thing. He paused, then met her eyes. But I can't. Maybe it's because you asked me. Maybe it's because you trusted me when you had no reason to. Either way, I can't throw you out. For the first time since he met her, Nira's expression softened into something more than fear. Gratitude. Humans are strange, she whispered. Yeah, Ryan said with a faint smile. We get that a lot. He pushed away from the wall and began to pace. His mind was racing. If the overseers were searching this hard, Nira wasn't just any runaway. There had to be more to her story, something important enough for them to risk stirring fear in the station. He stopped and looked at her. Nira, if I'm going to protect you, I need to know everything. No secrets. You understand? She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Good, Ryan said. He sat back down, though the weight of his choice still pressed on his chest. He had crossed a line, one he could never return from. From now on, every knock at the door, every shadow in the hallway, would be a threat. But as he looked at Nira fragile, frightened, yet still alive because of his decision, he realized something else. Risk had always been part of a human's life on the station. But this risk was different. This was not about crawling into a machine or repairing a broken pipe. This was about protecting someone who had nowhere else to go. And for that, Ryan decided, the risk was worth it. Ryan could not shake the feeling of eyes following him everywhere he went. The next few days on the station felt different. Security patrols doubled in the corridors. Drones hovered longer outside doors, their red sensors blinking like watchful eyes. Even the air felt heavier, filled with quiet tension. At work, Ryan tried to act normal. He crawled through broken pipes, replaced old wires, and tightened loose bolts. But his thoughts were always on Nira, hiding in his room. He left her with food packs, strict instructions to stay quiet, and a promise to return. Every time he walked back to his quarters, fear clawed at him. What if she was gone? What if security had found her while he was away? But each time, he slid the door open and found her there waiting, silent, and watching him as though he was her only anchor. One evening, as Ryan sat at his desk pretending to study repair manuals, Nira suddenly spoke. They are searching harder now, she said in a low voice. I hear the steps outside. They are not looking for just anyone. They are looking for me. Ryan turned to face her. I've been thinking the same. Why? Why are you so important? You told me others disappeared, but no one's ever caused this much noise. Nira's markings dimmed. She hesitated. Because I know something I should not. Ryan leaned forward. What is it? But before she could answer, the sharp sound of boots filled the corridor outside. Loud. Many. Ryan's blood ran cold. The door scanner lit up red. Someone was trying to override it? Hide. Ryan hissed. Nira darted under the bed without a word. Ryan grabbed his tool bag, yanking it open to scatter tools across the desk, trying to look busy. The door slid open, and 3 officers stormed in. Their visors gleamed under the ceiling light. Engineer Ryan, one barked. We need to search this room. Ryan forced a calm expression. Why? What's wrong now? Orders, the officer snapped. A fugitive has been tracked near this section. Ryan's stomach tightened, but he shrugged. Go ahead. Just don't touch my tools. I don't want to fix them again because of careless hands. The officers spread out, scanning corners, peering into the locker, even tapping on the walls. One bent near the bed, and Ryan's heart pounded so hard he thought it would burst. The officer crouched, scanner in hand. Neera's small form pressed herself into the shadows beneath the bed, silent as stone. The scanner beeped once, then went quiet. The officer frowned, tapped the device, and stood again. Clear, he said. Ryan let out a slow breath through his nose, careful not to show relief. The leader gave him a cold stare. If you see anything unusual, you will report it. Humans have been punished before for disobedience. Ryan met his visor without flinching. I understand. The officers left, and the door hissed shut behind them. For a long moment, Ryan stood frozen. Then he dropped heavily into his chair, head in his hands. Neera crawled out, shaking. They almost found me. Almost, Ryan said through clenched teeth. But they didn't. He looked at her sharply. That was too close. If they search again, we won't be so lucky. We can't just sit here and wait for them to catch us. Neera's voice trembled. Then we must move. Ryan frowned. The thought of sneaking her through the station, with patrols everywhere, seemed insane. But keeping her here was even worse. That night, while most of the station slept, Ryan packed a small bag. Food packs, water canisters, a multi-tool, and an old comm device. Neera watched him silently, her glowing eyes reflecting both fear and trust. Where will we go? She asked. There are maintenance tunnels, Ryan said. Humans use them all the time. Security doesn't patrol there much. If we can reach the lower decks, we'll be harder to track. Neera nodded. They slipped out into the corridor. The air was still, the lights dimmed for night cycle. Ryan moved quickly, keeping his head down. Neera stayed close, her light markings covered beneath the dark cloth he had given her. For a while, the corridors were empty. Ryan began to hope they might actually make it. But then stop, a voice barked behind them. Two security officers had turned the corner. Their visors glowed red as their scanners lit up. Run! Ryan hissed. They bolted down the hall, boots pounding against the metal floor. Alarms flared behind them as the officers gave chase. Ryan grabbed Neera's hand and yanked her toward a side hatch. He punched a code into the panel, and the hatch groaned open. They squeezed inside just as a stun bolt sizzled past, scorching the wall. The hatch slammed shut, leaving them in darkness. Ryan pulled a small light from his bag, its beam cutting through the shadows. Narrow pipes lined the tunnel, steam hissing softly. Neera gasped for breath, clutching his sleeve. They will not stop, she whispered. Ryan looked at her, his jaw tight. Then neither will we. They moved deeper into the tunnels, the chase far from over. And for the first time, Ryan realized he was no longer just hiding someone. He was part of something much bigger. The overseers wanted Neera silenced and he wanted to know why. The tunnels were narrow, hot, and filled with the steady hiss of steam. Ryan led the way, his small lamp cutting a weak circle of light ahead of them. Neera followed close, her steps careful, her glowing markings faint beneath the cloth he had wrapped around her arms. Hours seemed to pass as they moved deeper. Sometimes they had to crawl, squeezing between pipes. Other times, they walked bent over, their footsteps echoing on metal floors. Ryan had spent years in these tunnels repairing broken systems, but never had they felt so endless. Finally, they stopped in a wider chamber where a cluster of pipes met. Ryan sat down heavily, pulling off his pack. His muscles ached, and sweat dripped down his neck. Neera lowered herself beside him, breathing hard. For a while, they said nothing. The only sound was the heartbeat of the station, the hum of power lines and the whisper of water rushing through pipes. At last, Nira spoke. "You know these paths well." Ryan gave a short laugh. "Better than my own quarters. Humans are always sent here when things break. It's not clean work, but it keeps the station running." Nira tilted her head, studying him. "Your people, you always take the work others refuse." "Why?" Ryan shrugged. "Because if we didn't, no one would. The overseers don't trust humans with power, but they don't mind giving us the dangerous jobs. We risk ourselves so the rest of the station can feel safe." Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "And you accept that?" He hesitated. "Accept it? No. But we survive. That's what humans do best. We survive where others wouldn't bother trying." Nero lowered her gaze. For a long time she was quiet, her hands folded tightly. Then, softly, she said, "That is why I came to you." Ryan turned to her. "What do you mean?" "When I escaped, I could have tried to hide with my own kind. But they would not have helped me. They fear the overseers too much. They obey. They always obey." Her voice trembled. "But humans, you fight, even when you know you might lose. My mother used to tell me that. She said if danger ever came, and if no one else would protect me, I should find a human. Because a human will not look away." Her words sank into Ryan like a weight and a spark at the same time. He thought of his mother back on Earth, long before he had left for the stars. She used to tell him that humans had stubborn hearts. Maybe it was true. He leaned back against the pipe, staring at the ceiling. "I don't know if that makes us brave or just foolish." Nero looked at him seriously. "It makes you different." Silence filled the chamber again, but this time it was not heavy. It was almost calm. After a while, Ryan pulled 2 food packs from his bag. He tossed one to Nira, who caught it clumsily. She turned it over, examining the seal as though it were something strange. "You don't eat this?" Ryan asked. "We eat different things," Nira said. "But this will do." She opened it carefully, taking small bites. Ryan smiled faintly. "First human meal for you, then. Not the best introduction. They taste like rubber." Nira gave a tiny laugh. It was the first time Ryan had heard her laugh, and it surprised him. The sound was soft, fragile, but it carried warmth into the cold tunnel. For a moment, it felt less like running for their lives and more like 2 people simply sharing food. After they ate, Nira spoke again, her voice low. "You risk much for me, Ryan." "Why?" He thought for a long time before answering. "Because I couldn't just shut the door on you. You asked me to let you stay, just one night. And when someone looks you in the eye and begs for help, turning away, it's not something I can do." Nira studied him, her glowing eyes shining brighter now. "That is what makes you human." Ryan met her gaze. For the first time, he felt the bond between them fragile yet strong, built not from words but from choices. He had risked everything to keep her safe. And she had trusted him completely, even when she had no reason to. The distant sound of metal boots clanging against pipes echoed faintly through the tunnels. Both of them stiffened. The chase was still on. Ryan stood, pulling his pack over his shoulder. "We have to keep moving. But remember this, Nira, no matter what happens, you're not alone anymore." She nodded, her small frame straightening with quiet strength. "And neither are you." They stepped back into the shadows of the tunnels, the bond between them stronger than the fear that hunted them. For Ryan, it was no longer about risk. It was about choice. He had chosen to protect Nira. And that choice gave him something more powerful than fear: purpose. The tunnels stretched on like a maze, twisting deeper into the station's hidden veins. Ryan and Nira moved quickly, their footsteps echoing in the narrow spaces. Every so often, they stopped to listen. The sound of patrols was always there, distant, but never gone. They could not run forever. Ryan knew it. Nira knew it too. When they reached an old junction chamber, Ryan stopped. It was large and round, filled with pipes, dangling wires, and a single ventilation shaft running up to the higher decks. He checked the map in his head. This place had been abandoned for years. Maintenance workers never came here anymore. "We'll rest," Ryan said, setting down his pack. His voice was steady, but inside he was tense. Nira sat quietly beside a pipe, her eyes glowing faintly in the shadows. "They are close," she whispered. Ryan nodded. He could feel it too. The chase had gone on long enough that the overseers would not stop until they caught her. They would comb through every tunnel, every hatch. And when they found them? No, Ryan thought. When they find us, I'll be ready. He began pulling tools from his pack: wrenches, clamps, a small cutting torch. Nira tilted her head curiously. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Preparing," Ryan said. "For what?" Ryan looked at her, his expression firm. "For when they catch up to us. We can't keep running. Sooner or later, we have to make a stand." Nira's markings flickered nervously. "But they are stronger. There are more of them." Ryan gave a small smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Maybe. But humans don't win by being stronger. We win by being clever." He moved around the chamber, checking valves, loosening bolts, rerouting small wires. Nira watched silently, not fully understanding what he was doing, but sensing his determination. Before long, the sound of boots echoed again. This time it was not distant. It was coming closer. Nira's breath quickened. "They are here." Ryan set the cutting torch aside and stood tall. "Then it's time." The door at the far end of the chamber hissed, then burst open. 3 security officers stormed in, their armor gleaming, visors glowing red. Behind them, more shadows moved in the corridor. "Human," one barked. "Step away from the fugitive." Ryan stood in front of Nira, blocking their view of her. His heart pounded, but his voice was steady. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The officers raised their stun rifles. "Do not interfere. You will be punished." Ryan smiled grimly. "You think punishment scares humans? We've lived with it since the day we set foot on this station." And with that, he slammed his hand against a valve. Steam hissed violently as pipes burst open, filling the chamber with thick clouds of heat and smoke. The officers staggered, their visors fogging, their sensors confused. Ryan grabbed a heavy wrench and swung it at the nearest one, knocking the rifle from his hands. "Run," he shouted to Nira. But Nira did not run. Instead, she pressed herself against the wall, eyes wide, watching Ryan fight. The chamber erupted into chaos. The officers stumbled, trying to aim through the steam. Ryan moved fast, ducking low, swinging his wrench, using the pipes as cover. He was smaller, weaker, but the station itself became his weapon. He knew every valve, every switch, every weak point. When one officer advanced, Ryan twisted another valve, and boiling steam blasted into the man's chest, forcing him back. Another tried to flank him, but Ryan kicked a loose pipe free, sending it crashing across the floor. "Humans don't back down." Ryan roared, his voice echoing through the chamber. The officers struggled, but Ryan's stubborn fury drove them back. Nira's glowing eyes widened as she watched him, or replacing fear. This was what her mother had spoken of: the fire in humans, the unyielding will to fight even when the odds were hopeless. Finally, the officers retreated toward the door, coughing through the steam. One shouted, "This is not over, human." You cannot protect her forever. The door hissed shut behind them. Silence fell, broken only by the drip of water from the pipes. Ryan leaned heavily against the wall, breathing hard. His arms shook from exhaustion. Nearer ran to him, her voice filled with both fear and admiration. You faced them. You drove them away. Ryan gave a tired smile. I told you. Humans don't win because we're strong. We win because we don't stop. She touched his arm lightly, her glowing markings brightening. Now I understand. This is why my mother said humans are different. You fight for more than yourself. Ryan looked at her, his chest rising and falling with each heavy breath. In her eyes, he saw not just fear anymore, but hope. And he realized something, this fight was no longer about hiding a fugitive. It was about proving that humans could stand against those who thought themselves untouchable. Straightening, Ryan tightened his grip on the wrench. They'll be back, he said. Stronger, maybe with more. But if they want you, they'll have to fight me again. And I'll be ready. Neera's gaze shone with determination now, matching his. Then we will face them together. In the shadows of the station, where silence and fear had ruled, a spark had been lit. One human, one alien, standing side by side. And for the first time, Neera believed that maybe, just maybe, they could change everything. The chamber still smelled of steam and scorched metal. Ryan sat against the wall, his wrench across his knees, his body aching from the fight. Neera stayed beside him, her glowing eyes fixed on the sealed door. She expected it to open again at any moment, spilling in more officers. But the door stayed shut. For now, they were safe. Ryan wiped sweat from his forehead. That was close, he muttered. Neera nodded. Too close. They both knew it wouldn't end here. The overseers would not give up. They would send more patrols, stronger forces, maybe even hunting drones. The fight in the chamber had bought them time, but nothing more. Ryan stood slowly, gripping his pack. We can't stay here. We need to get off the station. Neera's markings flickered in surprise. Off the station? But where would we go? Anywhere, Ryan said. There are trading ships docked on the lower decks. If we can reach them, we can slip away before the overseers lock everything down. Neera's face showed hesitation. You would leave everything behind? Your work, your home. Ryan gave a tired laugh. Home? You think this is home? This station never belonged to us. Humans live here because we're useful. The moment we're not, we'll be pushed aside. No, what I have isn't a home. What I have is a choice. And right now, I'm choosing to get you out of here. Neera stared at him for a long moment, then lowered her head. You are willing to risk so much, for me. Ryan put a hand on her shoulder, steady and firm. Not just for you. For what's right. If I hand you over, I'll live the rest of my life knowing I let fear win. That's not what humans do. Neera's eyes glowed brighter, filled with something more than fear now. Hope. They began their journey again, slipping through tunnels, crawling through narrow vents, climbing down long shafts. Ryan's arms shook with exhaustion, but he pushed forward. Neera followed close, her trust in him unshaken. Finally, they reached a grate that opened into one of the lower docking bays. Through the slits, they could see cargo crates, ship crews shouting orders, and the silver hulls of small trading vessels. Ryan pried the grate open, then froze. A line of overseer officers stood between them and the ships. Their armor gleamed, rifles in hand. It was a trap. Neera's breath caught. They knew we would come here. Ryan cursed under his breath. His mind raced. There were too many of them. Fighting wasn't an option this time. But then, something unexpected happened. Across the bay, several humans, dock workers, engineers, cargo lifters noticed Ryan and Nira through the grate. They saw the officers blocking the ships. And slowly, carefully, the humans began to gather. One by one, they stepped closer, pretending to move crates or check tools, but their eyes were fixed on the overseers. Ryan realized what was happening. Word had spread. The humans knew. They knew he was hiding someone, protecting someone. And now they were making their own choice. He pushed the grate aside and stepped out, Nero behind him. The overseer commander raised a rifle. Human, stand down. Hand over the fugitive. Ryan stood tall, his body aching, his heart pounding. But his voice was steady. No. She's under my protection. The commander's visor glowed red. Then you choose punishment. Before he could give the order, one of the dock workers stepped forward. If you punish him, you punish us too. Another human joined. We won't stand aside. More voices rose, louder this time. Soon, a dozen humans stood in the bay, facing the overseers. Not with weapons, but with unshaken will. The commander hesitated. The overseers had power, armor, and rifles, but humans had numbers. And more than that, they had unity. Nero looked around in wonder, her eyes wide. They are standing with you, she whispered. Ryan gave a small, grim smile. That's what humans do. The standoff stretched long and tense. Finally, the commander lowered his rifle slightly. He did not fire. He did not move forward. The overseers were not used to resistance, not from humans. With a sharp gesture, the commander signaled retreat. The officers pulled back, their visors glowing with cold warning, but they did not attack. The docking bay filled with silence. Then, slowly, the humans turned to Ryan. One of them, a tall man with oil-stained hands, nodded. Get her on a ship. We'll cover you. Ryan's throat tightened. He wanted to say something, but no words came. Instead, he placed a steady hand on Nira's back and guided her toward a waiting vessel. As they stepped onto the ramp, Nira looked up at him. You gave me hope, she said softly. But now I see it is not only you. All humans carry this fire. Ryan smiled faintly. That's our secret. We break, but every time we break, we get stronger. The ship's engines roared to life. The bay doors opened, revealing the endless stars beyond. As the vessel lifted off, Nira stood beside Ryan, her eyes glowing with new strength. For the first time, she believed freedom was real. And Ryan knew that the choice he had made, the choice to stand, to fight, to protect, had changed not only their lives, but the future of every human and every alien who dared to hope. Because humans never turned away from those who whispered, "Please, let me stay."